I thought when I was talking about what it means to use artificial intelligence, and I talked to a lot of clients and they're kind of stuck in an analysis phase. They're trying to understand it. Maybe they think it's basically analytics or just looking at big data or trying to make sense of the data they have. And so there's a little bit of analysis paralysis, if you will. And so I like to think about how do we move the ball? How do we get from analysis to actually applying artificial intelligence? Because we're starting to see that in the consumer world. Right? Our consumer devices talk to us. They understand what we're saying. We can tell them to do things. My parents now have an artificial intelligence device in their house, and they shout at it and tell it to do things, and I have flashbacks when I hear them yelling at the device to tell them to do something, right? So it's amazing that it's so pervasive in our lives and in our consumer devices. And so how can we take all the information we have at the enterprise level and actually apply it to our mission? It's gone exponential. Companies now, you'll hear the stories about how companies don't have assets, they have data, and they use that data to create value. You hear the stories about a company like Airbnb, the largest hotel company in the world with no properties. You hear about Uber, the largest taxi company in the world with no cars. Right? These are data companies. We talked to a company like Capital One, a bank, and yet what they're doing is they're taking financial information and making it valuable and making it that's their major asset. It's not the money anymore, it's how you inform people about it, what you can do with it. And so the companies that are really racing ahead in the fields right now, they're the ones who are adopting artificial intelligence, and they're the ones who are racing ahead of their competitors. And so what does that mean for government? What can we learn from companies that are taking information, taking data, applying artificial intelligence to it, and really going gangbusters in their markets? What does that mean for us, for our mission? Can we do similar ways to leap ahead and get beyond our backlog of mission requirements and really get into innovative ways to do what we need to do for the country and for citizens? So what Accenture has done is we've gone out and surveyed these leaders to say, what are you doing that is making you so effective? And I want to share with you some of the insights we've learned about what effective companies are doing with artificial intelligence and how we might be able to apply that in the federal sector. We call this the Artificial Intelligence Quotient, or your AIQ. So what's your AIQ score, if you will? We did this study of 200 organizations, and very few of them are really going all the way and saying not only are we leveraging the data we have internally, and we've broken down our internal data silos, but we're collaborating and leveraging public data sets, other pieces of data to really enrich the private data we have to do more with it. You can imagine for a second, what if we had weather data to predict why so many people are doing a certain thing? What does seasonality bring to the problem? If there's a major event in a city, how does that overwhelm the crowds and the traffic situation that's occurring? So it's not just about the data we have, although a lot of it is useful and very rich, but it's how we integrate that and collaborate on other data sources to get beyond just what we have and what we see in front of our face. Where's the context for that data that helps us make more of it? And so this is what we're seeing for our very high-performing organizations. We call them collaborative innovators. These are people that just don't look at their own data, but they also take the opportunity to define and wonder and understand how they can grab other sources of data. You heard this morning from Intel, from Representative Hurd, from Thomas, about the deluge of data that's coming in. All of this data is out there. It's not just stuff we generate, but it's coming from all kinds of places. I remember the story about each individual generated 1.5 gigabytes of data per day, and like me, I have teenage children, and they overwhelm me with the amount of data they can produce on a daily basis as well. So how do you build your artificial intelligence quotient? What do you do to get ready? Right? I mentioned earlier that I talk with clients, and they're still in that phase of, what do I need to do to be prepared? How do I get started? And Representative Hurd this morning spoke about having people involved as part of that transformation. And that's one of the things we've seen as well. There are these 3 areas where we see leaders start to develop their capabilities so they're prepared to apply artificial intelligence. One of them is the technology area, and you heard from Thomas today about the technology available in the Oracle Cloud. I'm a geek, so 25 gigabit Ethernet speeds from computer to computer makes me excited. Non-oversubscribed CPU, non-volatile RAM and disk attached right there. Some really high performance capability. So technology is getting ready, and it's available in the cloud places very early. People have to be part of this as well, training people how to become data experts, how to naturally interact with artificial intelligence, how to take advantage of AI that augments their work and helps them do their job more effectively. We don't believe AI is going to replace jobs. What we believe is AI is going to take the drudgery out of jobs and free up people to be more creative and work on the harder citizen problems and mission problems that they struggle with and they don't even have as much time for as they do today. And then probably the last one, and most importantly, and I'll spend most time on this one today, is data. Because data really informs artificial intelligence. It allows us to give examples of what we want done. We give examples of the data we've considered in the past, the decisions and actions we've taken as a result of that data. And the computer systems now use AI to discover the patterns in that data that inform those decisions, to the point where we can feel confident that we can delegate to an artificial intelligence to take actions on our behalf. I'm going to go into that in a little more detail. Focusing on data. There was an article by Chris Anderson of Wired a few years back called The End of Theory. He was positing that we have so much data now that we don't need to theorize, or we don't need to come up with questions. The data will tell us what we need to do. I'm not sure I agree with Chris, although I do agree we have much more data than we know what to do with. Matter of fact, that issue of data generation is probably a data overwhelming problem. You imagine, back in the day, you get all this junk mail in the mail, and you're like, oh, I have to sort through all this stuff, and 9 times out of 10, I don't know what to do with it. That's gone down, but it now is shifted to your email inbox, right? And so now, hopefully, we've had AI assistants who can tell us the difference between a scam and spam and real mail that we want to deal with. If we didn't have a spam filter or some kind of basic artificial intelligence to help us sort through our email, I can't imagine how overwhelmed we will be. So if you can imagine the data getting more and more larger and coming at us faster and faster, we're going to have to enlist our artificial intelligence assistants to help us sort through that incoming data and decide what's relevant, to clean it for us, to tell us where it came from, because we're not going to be able to do that manually anymore. We're not going to be able to keep up. And so while this new data will help us do a new understanding of how the world works, we're going to be moved from cleaning data, managing data, doing the freight work of moving data around, to saying, what kind of questions do we want to ask? I love the picture that Thomas put up this morning about the expense analysis and saying, I want to see this by employee, and then by region, and then by which business users are spending the most. And one of the things that struck me on that is, I don't know how many meetings I've been in where someone has done an analysis, they're bringing up PowerPoint, they're showing me their conclusions, and about halfway through the meeting, the senior executives in the room will start to ask, well, did you consider this? Did you include seasonality? Did you notice that we did an acquisition and we brought in a whole bunch of new people in that domain? And the poor analyst who's prepared the presentation goes, I'll get back to you on that. And it takes them 2 or 3 weeks maybe to re-look through the data and produce a new presentation. But as you saw this morning, an ability to ask the artificial intelligence, can you consider this variable or take that variable out? And now you have a productive work session, not a meeting where we're presenting stale data, but rather a session where we're allowed to examine the data and ask questions of it, and the artificial intelligence helps us analyze it as we explore the data, react to what it's showing us, and ask new questions. That's where I think our new value comes in. It enables us and frees us up to do what we do best, which is think of creative questions that we want the machines to answer for us. And so to do that really well, we have to have data that creates value. Not just the data that we have transactionally, and we have to break down those silos of data that we have. How do we enable our legacy systems to be a part of this data ecosystem? And that can mean a whole variety of issues to consider. Do your software vendors make it available to you to access data in their system? Do you actually own your data? It's an important thing to consider. Review your data agreements and make sure if it's your data that you've created, you have the access to do with it what you want. If you're accessing data in a system, does that mean I have to license extra users for every query in for that data I want to use for analytic purposes? We want to consider that and make sure, again, how are we being able to make the data usable for many different purposes? Can we integrate that with our legacy systems? So can an AI reach into ERP? Can it reach into the HR system? Can it reach out to external data sources? Can it get the data it needs to make decisions that we want it to? And then lastly, and this is something that's very important to us at Accenture, is what we call responsible AI. Do we know where the data came from? Is it representative? Does it have any inherent biases in it that we should be aware of? Is it missing data? Is it incorrect? What's our process for correcting data? If someone says, your AI made a decision on my behalf with incorrect data, how do we address that? What's our process and procedure for correcting, overseeing, and retraining the AI with the proper data we want? How do we tell AI to ignore certain data that we're saying, don't base your decision on these data elements, because those are things we do not want the AI making decisions on. So responsible AI, a policy around what data can and can't be considered for a decision, you probably have that with your people. All of us go through compliance training or ethics training where we're told you're not allowed to discriminate or make decisions based on these data elements. We don't want an AI going, well, you used to in the past, and so I'm thinking this is important. We want to say, no, that's not what we want you to do. How do we make sure an AI follows our compliance regimen? Right? So that's a cool thing to be thinking about. Not only is it important to have people who can work with data and come up with the algorithms you need, but really, again, it's about this power of bringing data together so you have the context around decisions. I'll bet if you ask people in your organization how they make decisions, they may make it based on that green screen or the form or the web page they're looking at, but it's likely they're bringing to bear their knowledge, their experience, and the context around them of what's going on in the world to help inform that decision. It's really rare that they're going to make a decision based on simply the data in front of them. They bring experience to the problem. And so how do we help AI have the same benefit, the same advantage? Early people who've done AI, just limit it to that data, are disappointed with the results. It's not as accurate as I would like. And that's because as humans, we bring our knowledge of the world to the problem. And so we want to do the same thing for AI by bringing data to converge together so it can have the whole picture when it goes and makes decisions for us. It's a kind of a dense slide here, but I wanted to put some of these thoughts in your head as things to think about when you're thinking about bringing data to artificial intelligence and how you're ready to do so. So you need access to vast quantities of data. AI really likes to have examples of what decisions you've made in the past, what data you use to make that decision, so it can learn the patterns. In many ways, it's just like hiring a new employee. You have them, shoulder surf with someone for a long time. You have them ride along as a trainee and watch what decisions you make. And after a while, you have the AI reflect back to you. It looks like that field and this field and this field are what you're using to base your decisions on. And you need a lot of data and a lot of examples to do that. You can get started small, but remember that you're going to have to train the AI just like you'd train a human to do that work. A lot of people are going to say, how do we go grab data? In the commercial world, it's interesting. There's a land rush, a land grab for data. In the federal government, we actually have an advantage here. We generate, maintain, hold a lot of data that is relevant to our mission and not available anywhere else. I suspect our bigger challenge in government will be how do we negotiate the ability to share data across agencies in a trusted manner so that we can rely on using that data to better inform our mission decisions. Another problem is that data in our organizations is usually siloed or dark or non-accessible. So that's another way you can start to get ready for artificial intelligence is how do you unlock that data? How do you make it visible? How do you make it describable? How do you understand the lineage, the pedigree, the history of that data so we can take advantage of it? And organizations are going to need to invest in opening up their legacy IT to make that available. And then in the last column here, sharing and trust. You heard this morning about Oracle's blockchain service. This is a service that you can imagine where I can trust have an insert-only database of information that hasn't been tampered with. And so if you think about if I'm going to trust an AI to make decisions, I really want to know the quality of the data and that it's been secured, hasn't been tampered with, where it came from, who generated it, and what the history of that was. So how can Accenture and Oracle together help you on this? On the left-hand side, I talk about our framework for helping agencies get ready to leverage and take advantage of AI. Find out which areas are ready to go today. So the idea is you don't have to boil the whole ocean here, right? Find out what mission activities are so well defined that you've got written into policy where the data is ready to make decisions on. And you can just essentially turn it over to an automation AI that you trust with some oversight to make those decisions for you to free you up. You probably have transactions in your agency today that can take advantage of this basic level of automation so you can practice your oversight capabilities when you make decisions on when AI is applicable to a problem. Figure out how you're going to govern the use of AI. AI can be used for these kinds of decisions, but not for those kinds of decisions. How will I validate and verify that AI is doing what I want it to do? How do I make sure the AI is in compliance with our compliance regulations? If those regulations change, can I retrain the AI to adapt to the new requirement that's been placed upon me? Right? So again, I like to tell people AI is not a heck of a lot different than hiring a bunch of people. You want them to be compliant. You want to oversee them. You want to be able to judge their veracity. You want them to be able to explain why they made a decision. So these are all kinds of things that we as Accenture have helped our clients work through a process for figuring out how do we govern the use of artificial intelligence in the agency. Figure out what technologies work best for AI. Is the data prepared in a way that AI can take advantage of? Do we need special things like TensorFlow processing units or high-end GPUs like are available in the Oracle Cloud to do the training that we want so the AI gets that high level of accuracy that we deserve? How do we teach our people to work with an AI assistant? So on their desktop, everyone remembers the little Clippy guy from Microsoft Office and how annoying he might have been? Now, if you have an artificial assistant, though, on your desktop, how do you make sure they're presenting relevant information that's useful to someone when they're working, that they're ready to accept that information? What's the impact on your workforce's ability to uptake and leverage and take advantage of that? Prepare the data so it's clean, you know where it came from, you know it's not biased, make sure it's ready for AI, and then make sure you have an ethics program to understand when's the right time to use AI and when is the wrong time to use AI. We heard about some of the Oracle technology that I think is excitingly available today to help make these things a reality. The first one that I was excited about is the data cloud. The fact that I get access to all of this external data that I can potentially bring to enrich my data sets and make decisions off of. The AI Cloud Platform Service we heard about this morning with the high-powered GPUs, the fast networking, the bare metal compute performance. So I can train AI quickly and retrain it quickly without having to wait weeks to understand if the AI model is relevant. The Oracle Management Cloud, which takes big data, starts to identify anomalies in it, and can tell me when I need to take action on things for maintenance or patching or other activities. And then finally, probably the most exciting thing for me as a former DPA, Thomas talked about the autonomous capability coming in many of the Oracle software components, like the data warehouse, like the database. So I can take my data professionals who are spending time making sure my systems are patched and updated and secure and doing that basic hygiene. And I can remove those activities from them because the database will self-patch. It'll identify the best time to patch so it has the least impact on my mission, on my business. It'll keep itself up to date and secure so I can focus my data professionals on data enrichment instead of doing data maintenance and data operations. And so for me, that's an extremely exciting capability where we can move beyond the shoveling of the coal into the steam engine of our IT and moving to actually driving forward with it and saying, this is where I want to go, this is the data I need, this is where I need to prep from. So I'm really excited about that as well. So I like to tell people it's kind of time to move beyond analysis and actually get going. Get on the horse and start going forward by harnessing the power of AI today. Accenture has a framework that can help you decide when it's right, how to use it, what data you need, and how to govern it. And Oracle has the technology to make that available to you to exploit and take advantage of third-party data, high-performance compute, and a large environment on the cloud on demand when you need it to. And then lastly, but not leastly, Oracle's been adding their artificial intelligence capability to many of their software as a service offerings, the adaptive intelligence applications, where they've been informing the ability to do things like purchasing and other things based on current patterns. So those artificial intelligence insights are available to use. You take advantage of their software as well. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I hope you're looking forward to applying AI in your mission as well. Thank you.